listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
The GM Shuffle, Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. Week 8 NFL. We're going to get to the Giants in Pittsburgh coming up tonight. That number all the way up to 6. I think with Sunday night concluding with the Cowboys' failed comeback attempt, 49ers 30-24. The Eagles getting back on track. I think we have to start with the NFC East, Michael Lombardi, and what the hell we saw at FedEx. I talked to you earlier before the show. It was almost like the Commanders before the Redskins exercised those Daniel Snyder deeds with that one play. No, seriously, it's like that one play is a seminal moment that says, all right, we can just now move on from the madness. There's a new culture, which you like to talk about. And that was pretty spectacular. They're talking about this team being a team of destiny there in D.C.
It really is. I mean, you could just see, I was picturing Daniel Snyder over in his villa somewhere in the south of France, you know, with all that money that he boatloaded out of this deal, right? And he's got his voodoo doll. He's rooting for the Bears to win the game so badly. Like, he doesn't want anything good to happen to Washington after he left because, you know, whoever wants it, it's like a president leaves. They don't want anybody else to. They want to honor the next person, right? So I could just think of that. But, wow, what a game. What a weekend. I mean, what a weekend of games. It really was. It was fun. The baseball, the football, it was great. But I got to start. Everybody wants to talk about the Hail Mary. I want to start with, whose idea was it to give the goddamn ball to some offensive guard on the 1-inch line? Like, I want to know. Somebody stand up and tell me whose idea. Like, there's two things I want to know, Patrick. I want to know who was watching the Dwayne Wade statue being made and someone didn't say, that don't look like Dwayne Wade, right? All right, how does somebody not say that? That's one. And two, how the hell did somebody not say, I don't think that's a really good idea to give the ball to a guard on the 1-inch line? Like, I want him pushing the quarterback. Yeah, go, no worries. I got that. But does he really need to carry the football?
That Wade statue looked more like our producer, Elliot. That's number one. And then number two, let's go over the final 2 minutes because Eberflus is taking some from Bears fans right now. And, of course, we're going to get to Tyreek Stevenson, who is taunting the Commander fans during the Hail Mary. But final 2 minutes, craziness. And you mentioned it. I don't know what Waldron's doing there. They got cute, and they go to Doug Kramer, number 68, almost like he's the fridge back in 85 in the Super Bowl. Like, what are you thinking there? You have to be protective of the ball.
Like, I don't understand it. Like, oh, we're really going to scare him? Okay, if you want to kind of put a fullback in a game, put somebody's used to. Now, he never got the handoff, but my Lord, that had to be one of the dumbest things of all that you could possibly do. And that just shows you that, I mean, they had to practice that, right? They had to practice that. And if you're a head coach, don't you walk over to him and say, I don't really like that. Take that out. Like, I don't want that in the game plan. But we don't do that because Eberflus is too busy coaching the defense. I'm sure he had to watch it in practice. It had to be like, okay, we're going to give the ball to the fullback, the guard. I mean, are we kidding ourselves? Look, I didn't think Caleb played very well at all. I thought the fourth quarter he was better. I thought what he did really good in that game was move around and avoid tacklers. But he still hasn't thrown the ball down the field in the game. And yet they found a way to come back and put themselves in position to win the game. And then their mismanagement at the end cost them. That decision, to me, is being not over. That decision was as bad as the structure of the Hail Mary.
So walk us through, I'm guessing these teams practice Hail Marys incessantly. The diamond with the player in the back hoping to get the tip, and we'll get to Stevenson with the tip after the taunt. But walk us through your take on Eberflus giving up those 15 yards, kind of staying back. I mean, we see it all the time. Did you have a problem with the strategy?
Well, no, because I think what you wanted to do at that point in the game, he had 3 timeouts, right? So when they lined up with 6 seconds left to go, I think that's the perfect time. Call your timeout, get your team together and say, look, they can't throw it to the goal line. There's no way. He's not going to be able to reach it. Let's not give him anything cheap here. Let's play a normal front with 3 guys back. We don't need to rush 4. Remember, when you're doing, one of the things you have to do on Hail Marys is you really don't want to rush too many guys. You want them to hold the ball because the clock's going to tick out, right? So when he could throw a quick out and he only eats up 3 seconds, you're doing him a favor. You're better off rushing one guy in that situation than anything. And then You have to have your best players on the field. Like, why wasn't Cole Kmet on the field? Maybe he was. I didn't see him. Like, your tallest, your best. Why wasn't Keenan Allen on the field? Right?
Right.
It's not a tackling drill. It's a drill that your best players have to be on the field, who have the best eye-hand coordination, who are coached to make sure they bat the ball down. We're not playing volleyball here. And then you got to be able to handle the receivers. I mean, that idiot Stevenson, he's over there talking to the crowd, right? Meanwhile, the receivers are coming after down the field. Like, you got to man up to a receiver. Everybody has a receiver, and no one can be as deep as the deepest. No one can. You have to have always somebody behind, because the ball somehow gets tipped that way. They're the scariest play in football, because one thing you know for sure, they don't call pass interference down there on that call. No matter how physical it gets, you've never seen a pass. Even Scott Novak wouldn't call pass interference down there. At least I don't think. He might. I mean, that's up his – he could do it. I mean, and if you don't like, why wasn't Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, why weren't those guys on the field? I'll tell you why they weren't, because they didn't practice it. Because it's not situationally. They didn't really cover it. They covered it, but they didn't cover it. Like, that's the one thing I think you're seeing on football on Sundays is situational football is getting worse and worse and worse. And it's an epidemic now. I mean, I went to an Ocean City High School game the other day with Bill Berman, and we were watching the game. It's 4th and goal. They had the ball, and they're in shotgun the opponent. Like, it's an epidemic. Like, get the under center and sneak the goddamn thing. Like, San Francisco snuck the ball for a touchdown for the 3-yard line yesterday. Like, what are we doing? The problem with the National Football League and the problem with most companies is everybody wants to do what everybody else is doing, because why? It's safer. It's safer. Nobody's going to get blamed.
Well, Stevenson got hit with the Sopranos tweet from Michael Lombardi. That's never good. But here's what Stevenson tweeted after the game. Quote, "To Chicago and my teammates, apologies for lack of awareness and focus. The game ain't over until zeros hit the clock. Can't take anything for granted. Notes taken. Improvement will happen. Hashtag bear down." So, I mean, can you imagine the meetings today?
Well, first of all, his behavior during the game was horrendous, too. I mean, he got in it with, he and McLaurin were going after each other the whole game, and he was instigating it. But no one stopped him from instigating it. Like, there was no control over that. Like, I think, to me, I don't know. I mean, it's wonderful that he apologized, but to me, it just shows you where his head is. Like, how do you put him back on the field again? Like, what are you going to do, put him back on the field? To me, like, at some point, when you're jawing with the crowd, your head's not in the game. And where's their teammates telling them to shut up and get over here? Like, where's that? Like, but how do you say it? Barnyard, or the safety, the kid who he was shocked nobody was behind him. Like, he couldn't believe it, and he's not supposed to be the guy behind it. There had to be a trailer guy there. It just, to me, that was the perfect opportunity to use a timeout. Make sure everybody understands what they're doing. Make sure everybody knows we're not tipping the ball. We're batting it down. You got 3 timeouts. Why not use them?
We should highlight Jaden Daniels. So whether he was going to play was up in the air with the ribs. 21 of 38, 326. He did have the touchdown, ran for 52 yards. But I love the interview after the Hail Mary. The kid is chill. He is on the ladder. He is completely just level-headed. And, that took over 12 seconds before he released the ball on that Hail Mary. So he was just roaming around. You could tell he was going to get it off. And then, he's got an arm. I believe it was Romo that said, are they going to put in Mariota to throw the Hail Mary?
Mariota doesn't have a stronger arm than Dan. I think he was referring to the injury might prevent him from throwing it. But I didn't think the kid – I think that was what he was referring to. But, I thought the kid didn't play his best game in terms of what we used to. He still threw for 326. Now, of course, 61 of it came on that play. But still, he had a hell of a day. He didn't – he ran the ball around. I mean, they had trouble with the Bears are a good defense. The Bears are a good defense, but once again, you can't win games with 10 completions. You really can't. And if Swift doesn't make that 56-yard hellacious run, I don't know if they would have gotten back in the game. That was a hell of a play by Swift. It really was. Swift was incredible on that run.
By the way, you mentioned the Bears defense. Like, Ron Rivera's Commander defense last year was about as bad as it gets. And Quinn, I'm not saying it's a great defense, but Bobby Wagner Jr., kind of a nice addition. He's been great. Like, this is a defense that's getting better, which adds kind of fuel to that. Could this Washington team be legit in the NFC?
Well, I think one thing about the Washington defense is it looks like they practice. It looks like they get better every single week. They're not the most talented. They held the Bears for 2 for 12 on third down yesterday. I mean, they were good. They only averaged 5.1 yards a play. I mean, the Bears were, if they would have, I mean, I know everybody says Washington's lucky to have won the game, but I think the Bears were lucky to have walked out of there with a win. Really, I mean, because they held, Washington's offense kind of got snagged down in the second half. But I agree with you, Patrick. I think they're practicing. I think they tackle better. They can't cover, but they're getting better at coverage. They understand their leverage points. I mean, it's really a good job of coaching the team to the whole way to play. And if you practice every week and you practice hard, not like some of these bad teams that we're watching, you actually get better. You improve. Football's not a game where you're going to master it after one day.
And Quinn had a great reaction. I mean, Quinn, you could tell the team loves him. And if you're a bettor, by the way, the favorites went 10-4 straight up, 7-7 ATS overs 10-4. But how about if you're a bettor on that play? Washington closed 1.5. So just that bomb, either you're covering with the Bears or you end up going the other way with Washington. That is like, if you want to see the sports better, I mean, that's welcome.
I gave out Seattle on Russo, and even when it was 31-3, I was still nervous. That's sports betting right there. That's sports betting. When you're in the league and you're up 31-3 with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, you're winning the game. But when you're giving out picks to people to hopefully to play them, 31-3 with 2 minutes in the third, you're nervous. You're still worried about it. I mean, look, how about the Chiefs? Chiefs gave up the backdoor cover, right? Yep. I mean, the Browns were in the game. That wasn't a backdoor. The Browns were in that one. But the Chiefs backdoor cover, I mean, it's just scary. This betting world is scary.
We'll stay in the East, just getting started here on the GM Shuffle. Are the Eagles back? And the Cowboys, they're not. We're back. GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle, presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. We're going to get to the Cowboys. That fourth quarter rally falls short in Santa Clara. Just audible, Michael, your boy Elliott and his quarterback Anthony Richardson. Can I just say this? The quotes coming out of Indy and the quotes coming from former players where my man took him. First off, he's completing 44% of his passes. And then he took himself out of the game because he was tired. I just want to get a quick thought on that with the loss at Houston.
Well, I think that certainly deserves more than just a quick thought, and we should discuss this because to me, there's a lot of lies that have been going on in the NFL. There's a lot of lies going on everywhere. But when Kevin Stefanski comes out and says that Deshaun Watson gives us the best chance to win, that's a lie because Jameis Winston just proved it. Joe Flacco proved it before. When Shane Steichen comes out and says Richardson gives us the best chance, that's a lie. If they play Flacco, that's a better thing. Look, I think Richardson's got some super talent, but the kid ain't ready to play in the NFL. And the fact that he had to take himself out because he was tired, could you imagine Michael Jordan taking himself out of a game?
Come on.
Come on, are you kidding? I mean, the kid admitted it like he wasn't going to get brushed back. You're the leader of the team. People are looking at you. You got great talent, but it's hard, man. It's hard to do this. I see, to me, I have a real problem. They're lying to themselves. I think I said this today. Indianapolis is the hardest team in the world to watch play football. And especially if you're betting on them. Because you got Gus Bradley annoying the shit out of you with his stupid bad defense, right? That he's going to give up 400 yards at a moment's notice. And then you got this quarterback who sucks, who can't completed 10 passes again today. You're sitting there in between two worlds, and you're like, wait a minute, this should be a close game here, right? This should be a close game. I'm always scared to give out Indianapolis because I'm like, oh, my God. I wanted to give out Indy on Russo, but I can't live through the 3 hours of torture. It's just fucking torture to watch them. I'm like, Gus, are you going to do something on defense, or are you just going to let him just keep running the ball on you? And then are you, and then offensively, I think Steichen has a chance to be a good coach, but every week he proves to me he's a manager, not a leader. Like at some point, look, I'd walk into Ballard's office or Jim Irsay's office and say, Jim, look, the guy ain't ready to play. He ain't ready to play on our team. We can't win with him playing quarterback. We could win with maybe a package for him with Flacco as the starter, and we'll do a little bit of thing. We'll do the college thing. We'll roll him out there, run the option, get him in the goal line, but he ain't ready for the showtime. It's a joke, isn't it? How do you stand in front of your team and say, we have a standard of performance that everybody must match, and for you to play, you have to meet that standard? And then how do you look at Anthony Richardson?
I'm glad I asked. Dallas, San Francisco. The 5.5, Michael. So the 49ers cover. I thought Purdy was shaky in the first half, and then 21 unanswered in the third. But then the 49ers, this is their bugaboo. They're going to get healthy, okay, but they gave up 14 in the fourth. A couple of things here. 3 straight games for Dak of 2+ picks. That's one. But the Cowboys, we talked about it. We used the word stale last Thursday. They can't run the football. And if they can't run the football, they've got one thing. It's CeeDee Lamb and Dak, and that's it. This is gross right now.
And they're overrated. They never were as good as people thought they were. I said it last year. Look, that offensive line can't protect. At what point are we going to double Nick Bosa? Like, I don't give a shit where Nick Bosa is on the field. I'm putting 2 people on him no matter where he is. If he's standing next to Kyle Shanahan, I'm putting 2 people on him. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, one thing that's been proven watching the Cowboys is their right tackle, Steele, can't block really good players. He can block average players. He can't block good players. I mean, that's okay, but you got to help them, right? You got to help them. And to me, this whole team by design is bad. You cannot win games in the NFL when your quarterback has to throw for everything. We're going to get to it when we talk about Cincinnati. What happens is there's too much pressure on the quarterback. The quarterback has to be near perfect on every single thing. You got to be able to have some juice in the backfield. They got no juice. Nobody. There's no explosiveness coming out. I mean, Dalvin Cook can barely stay on his feet. That tells me a player's lost his legs. When you see a guy fall down as much as Dalvin Cook fell down in that game, like I would say, like we're wasting our time. Like to me, they should be. I've said this before. I mean, Carolina's the worst team I've ever seen. They really are. They're worse than an expansion team. They should take Miles Sanders. He would help Dallas tomorrow. I'm not saying he's good. I'm saying he would help them. That's how bad they are. And to me, they have no running back. Like they looked at their depth chart all offseason and said, okay, this is the best we can do. I mean, running backs, there's a thing. Look, the Garano, however you say his name, from San Francisco, that kid comes in there and plays well for him. He's their third string back, And so, like, where are the backs? Sherman plays good for Indianapolis. Like, can't we get a better back than Zeke? I think Zeke's a short yardage back. That's what he is. Dallas has nobody to blame but themselves. And everybody's going to blame Dak. Everybody's going to blame their star players, which they deserve the blame too. But this is a design problem in Dallas, a complete design that it was poorly orchestrated by whoever decides on what our team needs are and who's good on our team.
So, yeah, Mason got hurt for San Francisco, as you mentioned. So I'm watching the Eagles trounce the Bengals in Cincy. The Bengals season essentially on the line, 37-17. And I was thinking about you because I feel like Zach Taylor owes Joe Burrow an apology. It's almost like he knows how talented the quarterback is and puts everything on him.
Everything on him. Yeah. To me, Zach Taylor, my reaction to Sunday was, at what point, Zach, do you put cold water on your face and say, toughen the fuck up? Like, I think it's really unfair to call a team soft because the players are only soft if the coach lets them be soft. If you're not coaching toughness, if you're not coaching the things that go towards winning, you can't be. But again, a design problem. They let Mixon go, who Mixon couldn't run the ball behind him, right? So they let him go. They signed Zach Moss. Like, that was not a one-for-one swap. Let's be clear. Nickelback for a power back. And then they got Chad Brown, who's a nickelback completely, right? Chad Brown's not breaking many tackles. Like, at what point do you not say that get your fucking team tough? And this disease of lack of toughness in the trenches has permeated over to their defense. I mean, all you hear the announcers say is, Lou Anarumo, great defensive coach. Fuck, they can't stop anybody. It was did you see that? I mean, the Eagles punted on the second series. They didn't punt the rest of the fucking game. And I'm not blaming Lou for this. They have no toughness. You can't practice the way they practice at Cincinnati and think you're going to be a powerful team. And then Burrow comes out after the game and says, well, we got 10 games. All we got to do is get to 10, and we can do that. You can't beat Las Vegas next week. What are you talking about? Like, what are we talking about? The fuck? They just let them run the ball up and down your throat? I mean, it was a joke. You completed every third. It took all these third downs. And to me, you said it so well. It goes back to Zach Taylor. Like, Zach, at what point don't you realize that either you change or you don't? Sean Payton went through this. Sean Payton, it was so easy to run Y stick. It was so easy to run spacing to get first downs and put everything on Drew Brees'. And you know what he realized? Fuck, I got to be tougher and I got to run the ball. I got to make this team win games in November and December. So I'm going to run the goddamn thing. No. Zach Taylor sitting there, just keeps calling pass plays, keep calling them, let them put the game in Burrow's head. The same thing's happening in Tennessee. Brian Callahan's doing the same. Put everything on Mason Rudolph's lap. How's that working out for you? Did you see the Lions drive chart? They had a 70-yard touchdown run on one play, and then they scored 52 points. I don't think they went over 40 yards on half on any of the drives. It was a joke. No. I mean, Goff threw for under 100 yards, and they scored 52.
Four turnovers. Yeah. That is.
I mean, to me, this is an institutional problem. And it's the Zach Taylors, it's these guys who are play callers running these NFL teams that don't understand what it takes to win. It doesn't take more pass plays. It takes toughness and physicality in the trenches. The Eagles walked in there and bitch slapped them. They just bitch slapped them.
And Sirianni, all of a sudden the heat's off him. They're 5-2, 3 rushing touchdowns for Hurts. And really the difference this year is Barkley. He didn't have a touchdown, but he does go for 108. He's averaging close to 6 a carry. He's been awesome.
Yeah. And the more they don't give him the ball, the better off it is for you. Like, that's when they get into trouble. But the game was too easy for the Eagles. The Eagles really didn't even have to break a sweat. I mean, they really didn't. Defensively, it was hard in the beginning, but the Bengal defense can't hold anybody. They can't play off blocks. They don't tackle well. There's nothing physical about them. Like, at some point, put on a Giant tape from the old days or a Washington tape. Watch Detroit Lions, how physical they are. If you're not coaching physicality, don't blame your team for being soft. Like, the Bengals are not a physical team. I don't know how Mike Brown watches them. They're just not. They're a 7-on-7. They'll win the 7-on-7 league. I don't want to hear this bullshit. Well, we didn't have T. Higgins. We lost. Bullshit. You have no toughness. That's why you lost. You couldn't run the ball to save your life. You got to be able to, you got to control a football game. You got to run the ball. You have to at some point. Running produces field goals. I get that. But you got to control the pace of the game somehow, some way. There's been no team that throws it 70 times a game that's won. 7-on-7 teams die at this time. We're going to go to November 1st. 7-on-7 teams die. Meanwhile, Joe Burrow's telling them they're going to go on a streak. Fuck, they couldn't beat Cleveland. If Cleveland would have swapped out Deshaun Watson for Winston last week, they'd have won that game.
I'll tell you this, big guy. Like, I'm watching the Lions game, and Goff attempted 15 passes and threw for 85 yards. Lions scored 52 points. It's the first time in my 46 years I was like, absolutely, this team can win a Super Bowl. Because they're doing everything else, whether it's a kickoff return or interceptions or just out beating the team's ass, which is what they did. That was a mismatch, 52-14 at Ford Field.
If I'm Rand Carthon, I'm on that flight home from Detroit to Nashville. I'm like, okay, that this is cold water on my face. That we're so far away, and we're far away in all 3 areas: players, coaches, and scheme. Like, our design on offense can't go like this. Like, I know we can run off Derrick Henry because we don't want to be a run first, and I know Rand's blaming Mike Vrabel for everything that's gone wrong in that building forever, which is bullshit, which is complete bullshit. But that's what they're doing there. That's why they're telling the owners so they can buy more time. But the reality of it is that team that when you get whooped like that, that's a come to Jesus. We better fix what we're doing. We better grade players a little differently.
Yeah, I know it's year one, but you had a team with identity in the Lions and a team that was lost in, of course, Nashville. All right, when we return, the Jets They lost to your Pats to fall to 2-6. It's over, Johnny, and we'll discuss it coming back here on the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
It's the GM Shuffle. Week 8 NFL tonight concludes in Pittsburgh with the G-Men in town. Michael Lombardi, it's the holiday season, and you're a big family guy. I've met your family. Everybody's tremendous. But oftentimes when I return to Michigan, it can be a little dysfunctional. Let's talk about the Jets. Eric, it just is, bro. I don't know what to tell you. I love my mom, but whatever. Let's talk. It's a little Tony Soprano-ish. Let's talk about the Jets. And your boy Jeff Ulbrich came out and said, we're dealing with a moment of darkness. And then Aaron comes out and says, well, I like to lean into the darkness. Maybe he's talking about a retreat. I don't know. But they lost to the Patriots. They fell to 2-6. And I'm so clear. You on the coaches show with you and Bill Belichick, you talked about the Salah being used as a scapegoat was a joke. And now they're 0-3 since getting rid of him.
Well, I mean, look, first of all, Woody said thinking's overrated. Wonder what he thinks today. I mean, seriously, what do you think of today, Woody? But here's what I would say. I mean, at what point do you realize that your field goal kicker sucks? Like, at what point if you're the Jets, do you realize that Greg Zuerlein is not any good? I mean, he's missed an extra point. He's missed 6 field goals. He leads the league in missed field goals, you know, and he costs them points every single week. Does Joe Douglas watch practice? Like, who's minding the store here? Now, look, I know Zuerlein is on the team. I get that. You know, it would cut him, would be a vested veteran. But to me, when I watch this Jet team, you know, he's a thorn in their side. Besides all the other problems that they have, which is defensively. I mean, look, this is supposed to be, we were told that this Jet team is the second coming of the 2000 Ravens. And I've said all along that ain't the case. The last 3 weeks, they've given up a ton of yards on the ground. They couldn't stop the forward pass yesterday. When they needed to stop a team with their backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, in the game, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And look, I think Rodgers, we know he's not the same player. That's clear. That's pretty clear. But the offensive line's atrocious. It's so bad. They can't protect. He's getting the shit kicked out of him. So what do they naturally do? They do what all teams that don't think do. They sign another receiver. Like, Devontae Adams has been there, 2 weeks now? Has he made a difference at all? I mean, seriously. I mean, it's a joke. They needed an offensive lineman. They didn't need another receiver. Their receiver wasn't their problem. I mean, so to me, the Jets are the classic Jets. They're run by somebody who doesn't know what he's doing, and the general manager doesn't have any authority to do what he wants to do, nor am I saying he could do it because he's more of a college scout than he is a general manager. Because if you're a general manager and you're watching Zuerlein, I'll tell you, I'd be all over that because I said it before the game. Zuerlein's killing them, and he continues to kill them. What, he hit the post 2 weeks ago against when they played Pittsburgh? Did he hit the post in that game? But people don't count. See, this is why. If we would count missed field goals as turnovers and highlight them, then Zuerlein, then the media would have been all over to get Zuerlein the hell out of there. But since nobody counts it as turnovers, it's okay. He's acceptable. It's okay. Well, he just missed one. No, he missed 6. That's 6 turnovers. The Jets aren't good enough to overcome 6 turnovers.
Well, think about the Buffalo game, right? Like that, their season turned on that Monday night, and Zuerlein was missing kicks all over the place. How is he back? Washington's got a dude that they brought in. They used 3 different kickers, and the kid can't miss now. You could have gone out and found someone.
Of course you could have. Washington lost the Tampa game because the kicker they had, the kid from Cleveland, York, who they drafted, he sucked it off, so they fired him. They fired him on the plane coming home, and they brought Seibert in. He missed one yesterday, Seibert or whatever the hell his name is. They brought him in, and he's been the difference in their team. He really has. Like if you don't have a good kicker in this world today, I mean, Tucker missed another one yesterday, which is uncalled for, but usually that happens. And the Jets are tolerant. You're either coaching or allowing it to happen. You just let this fucking guy keep missing. Everybody focuses on Aaron Rodgers. Right. I get that. Right. Everybody focuses. But the defense, I mean, you got supposedly Sauce Gardner supposed to be according to Pro Football Focus. Nobody's ever gotten open on him in the history of Pro Football Focus. Meanwhile, Butte goes down there and runs a goddamn pass. He's wide ass open. All right, explain it to me.
The Commanders, the Hail Mary was the game winner, but they kept on stalling out in the red zone and kicking field goals. So that's what kept them in it. 100%. I totally agree. Let's transition. The biggest upset of the day, of course, was the Browns winning on the field 7.5. Remember, that number is up to 8.5, 9. The Ravens go to Cleveland in division 29-24, and Winston leads the game-winning touchdown drive. Here's what I did notice, and you tell me if I'm missing the. It's almost like Stefanski said, "Oh, thank God I can push the ball down the field," and that's what he did with Winston.
He did it, and it did the same thing when Flacco came in. I mean, he did the same thing when Flacco came in. They throw for 321. Before this happened, they never. 2 weeks ago, last week they threw for 259, but before that they couldn't throw the ball at all. I mean, it was a joke. I mean, it's so clear that Watson was the problem. Like, I don't know how you could stand in front of the media today and say, well, I was right about Watson. He was, he was still good. No, he's killed you. Do you realize going into this game, the Cleveland Browns were the only team in college and pro football that hadn't scored 20 points all year? Think about that. Only one that hadn't, and yet they did. And so, like, Watson, now look, God was with them yesterday, the Brownies. Because Kyle Hamilton dropped the interception twice. He had it in his hands. He started to lose it. He regained it, then he dropped it. I mean, that was a classic. Winston's going to give you one. He gave it to him. They just didn't catch it.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns, no picks. There were a couple turnover-worthy throws from Winston, but that's what you're going to get from him. And he can't, I mean, listen, he had the cheesy post-game thing with the M&M, but there is something about the energy that he does infuse. And it's like, the one thing about Watson, we talked about the lack of mobility at this age, but the arm strength wasn't there. And it's just you couldn't push the ball. Now, at least with Winston, you have a chance.
You do have a chance. And their defense, look, they would have beat Cincinnati last week if their defense was good. Their defense only allowed 12 first downs to Cincinnati. Their defense only allowed 19 first downs to Philly. I mean, they play pretty good. They're good on defense. I mean, they're not as good as they once were, but they're good enough to win. Now they have the Chargers this week. I mean, if there's a team that can overcome it, I would rather bet on the Browns than the Bengals. The Browns have toughness. They're going to run the ball. Maybe Chubb will come back and be where he was. I don't expect it to happen that quickly, but their offensive line played much better. I mean, this is a team that couldn't convert third downs. I mean, they went into the game. I think they were 31 of 112 on third down. Think about that. I mean, they converted third downs yesterday at a drop of a hat. Bigger issue here, though, too, is Baltimore stinks on the secondary. Baltimore can't cut. Baltimore needs to make a trade. Like, to me, Baltimore needs to find another pass rusher, and Baltimore needs to improve their defense, because I don't think Baltimore is going to be able to keep out. Like, they outscored Cincy and won that game, but when they play against good teams, I think it's going to be hard to keep outscoring people.
Yeah, they were down a corner, down a safety, obviously, but even when they had them, that pass defense hasn't been good all year. It's almost the unspoken thing about, of course, that Ravens defense. So I think you would agree the Lions are the best team in the NFC. I'll ask you this way. The Bills went to Seattle, easily covered the 31-10. Are the Bills the best team in the AFC?
I think they are. I know the Chiefs are undefeated, but I think the Bills are really good. Remember last year the Bills against a very good Kansas City defense ran for 175 yards. They threw for 175. They ran for 175. Bass misses the kick to go to overtime. They should have beaten the Chiefs that day. There's no question. I think this version of the Bills is much better. Shakir is really good in the slot. I think this Coleman kid's starting to come on. Josh threw his first interception because, Cooper couldn't cross the face of the corner on a slant route. But I thought they were good from start to finish. They were focused. It was bad weather up there. They kicked Seattle's ass. They stopped the run when they had to stop the run. I thought they were the best team. They really are. And look, they got the best player. He can do things that no one else can do. He moves around. I think they're complete. I really do. I think they look like it. They went in there. They dominated. They've been beating teams pretty much single-handedly by 3 touchdowns every single week. I thought they were really good. To me, the Chiefs, Mahomes again yesterday throws an interception. And as soon as he threw that interception, I said, I forget who caught it. I said to myself, you better score because the Raiders won't score. Like, the kid I thought he was going to run it in for a touchdown because I knew the Raider offense wouldn't score. And then, of course, Antonio goes for it on 4th down. He has 3 tries to get it in the end zone. He can't get it in, but why not go for it on 4th down? Why not? That 4th try is going to be the charm, right? So we're going to go for it there. Why not cut the game to 17-13 if you can? Just come away with points, give yourself some momentum. But no, unbelievable. I mean, can the Raiders get any worse? Seriously.
No.
You know what?
No, they can't.
I mean, they talk about it. You talk about the whole thing. The Raiders running game, 2 things have happened to the Raiders that nobody wants to discuss. They can't run the ball. They had 21 carries for 33 yards, and their defense has gotten worse from last year. Like, their defense is worse. Like, it was good last year at the end of the year. It was good. Their defense is not as good as it once was. They had 21 carries for 33 yards. That Madison got the ball 14 times. He gained 15 yards. The longest run of the day was 7 yards by Minshew and Tucker on a reverse. What does that tell you?
21 carries for 33. They do get the backdoor cover. That's hard to do. That's impressive. 21 for 30.
I was rooting for that because, your boy Russo went 0 for 3 this week again.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, he went 0 for 3 again. Now I got to win tonight. I got the Giants tonight, but he went 0 for 3, and he took Miami. He swore that was going to be the easy win. Of course, he's not paid any attention to Miami at all. You talk about softness team. You talk about no toughness. Talk about no 4th quarter. The Mike McDaniel great. Spin those records on the sideline. That's perfect, Mike. You're really, perfect. Can't stop anybody. This is his 3rd defensive coordinator in 3 years. Nobody says a word about it. Like, try coaching for that guy. Try being a defensive coordinator for that guy in that program.
Can't get a read on the Cards. They're 4-4, 28-27. They pick up the dub down in Miami. Do you take anything from Arizona coming out of this?
I give Gannon and I give the whole coaching staff, Petzik, those guys, a ton of credit. They just keep battling. Murray made some great throws. I mean, Marvin Harrison is the only receiver McBride and Harrison killed him yesterday. At what point do you not take him away? Harrison on a 2nd and 15, they got a holding call on Johnson, the left tackle. And so it was like 2nd and 20. They threw an in cut to Harrison, and he caught it as a first down on the final drive of the game. And they had a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter. You blow a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter, what that tells me is your team isn't able to stop the run when they have to or run the ball when they have to.
Arizona moves to 4-4, a win down in Miami. The DJ spinning the wrong records. When we return, we're going to
spun them again.
The lettuce looks good, though. But the Week 8 awards coming up here on the GM Shuffle. We'll take a look at Monday night, concluding Week 8 with the Giants in Pittsburgh.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Okay, it's the GM Shuffle. We've got our Week 8 awards coming up, presented by DraftKings. Before we do, let's quickly, Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. I was listening to, and Buffalo dominated every category as far as Seattle's concerned statistically. I enjoyed the game because we're starting to see Brady kind of come into his own, I think, a little bit as a broadcaster. He'll get there. But there were a few things you took away from his call.
I thought he said something that I completely agreed with. I think, to me, Seattle is a team that has a lot of young coaches on it. And he was talking specifically, and I've said this, one of the reasons I liked Seattle last week was I think there's a mismatch between Ryan Grubb and Sean McDermott. When you go, and Brady kept saying this on the broadcast, when you go against McDermott, he takes away he makes you play left-handed. And unless you've played him a lot, you really don't understand how he does it or what he does. But he's very good at calling the defense. He's very good at structuring the defense and forcing the opponent to kind of get out of their comfort zone. And I think that matchup between Ryan Grubb, who may go on to be a really good offensive coach at some point, but to me, I think Seattle's staff is too young. We saw it. They have a guy line up in the A-gap against the Giants who's a jumper. Nobody points it out. They jump. They get a field goal block, go to overtime. I think, to me, when you watch them, I think there's a lack of it overall, and it's going to come, but I think some of these are growing pains. And I thought Brady did a really good job of nailing. This doesn't mean Grubb's not ready to be a coach. I think he'll learn, but one of the things is it's tough to learn on the job, right? You go from the University of Washington to become the Seattle offensive coordinator, and now you're going against McDermott, and you're going against some of these really good defensive coaches. It's not college anymore, right? It's not. And so you're just not going to be able to outdraw plays. See, that's what everybody thinks, that when they're going against a coordinator, they think they can outdraw plays. When you have to understand the rhyme and reason to what they do. That's why Belichick would spend so much time on the coordinators, teaching the coordinators to the staff, to the coaches, to the staff, but understanding the origins of the defense or the origins of the offense. If you don't understand that, it's really hard. I remember walking off the field after he played Mike Zimmer in Cincinnati in an opening game, and they scored like 40-some. And I'm walking off the field with him going into the locker room after the game, and I said, yeah, that was really impressive. He said, well, we really got a really good handle on Zimmer. Like, he knew Zimmer, right? He understood Zimmer and knew how he thought, how he processed. When you're a college coach, you just call plays, right? You're running beaters. You're just running beaters. This is what I do. This is what happens. And I thought Brady did a really good job of letting the viewer know what McDermott, how good McDermott is. The same thing with Spagnuolo. It's the same thing with Andy Reid on off. I mean, there's a cluster of them, right? But if you don't have one of those guys, you're at a disadvantage. I mean, Ben Johnson, I think Aaron Glenn's getting better at it.
Glenn is getting better. I'm glad you brought him up because I think he's starting to feel himself as a DC. Probably be a head coach soon. That's fascinating, what you said about Belichick and having a hand. Zimmer's a very good coordinator, but sometimes you pick up on tendencies, and I like the way you put that up. It's all quiet from Big Daddy land as the Packers 6-2. We should give you credit. You took the 3.5 with the Jags and you covered for your best bet on GM Shuffle last Thursday. Love exits the game. Malik Willis leads the Packers on a game-winning field goal drive, a 30-27 win down in Jacksonville.
It looked like Jacksonville to me had when Malik Willis came in, they didn't realize they were going to the Malik Willis offense. See, this is part of the problem is when you get so structured on the last 3 games, and I think that Jacksonville wasn't ready for that. And credit Malik Willis. He's done things I never thought he could do in terms of how he's played. I didn't hear from Big Daddy all day until the final 2 minutes when he started to critique Jeff Hatley. What's he doing?
Sure.
What kind of 2-minute off defense is this? And I said, and then, of course, I don't answer. And then, of course, Doug Peterson, not to be disappointed, gives up a 50-yard pass, and they win the game and they cover. But, look, I think that was a hard game. I don't read much into that game on Green Bay's side in terms of the bad. I think it shows a lot of the good and the resiliency to come back, deal with the heat, the humidity, come back, win the game. Now they got to host Detroit, hard game. But I think it was a trap spot for them. And look, where does Jacksonville go? Jacksonville's at a $1.8 billion stadium. Do you think anybody's going to buy tickets to that stadium currently based on the way they're configured? They can't sell out the stadium they're in.
Yeah, I don't know where they go. I'll just say this. You might lose a co-host, and it's not me.
But, I mean, I don't even think they even would consider that. I think, to me, this is the problem with the league. There's this mindset that's happened in Carolina. Sean Payton came out and said that's a really bad offense. Now, most coaches are like doctors. They don't criticize other doctors, right? You can't ever get a doctor to criticize a doctor. Most coaches are like that. When Sean attacked Carolina like that, and I've been attacking Carolina, I think Dave Canales is probably a wonderful man. He's no more ready to be the head coach of that than I am to be the head of medicine for John Hopkins. Like, there's just no chance, right? I mean, there's no way he should be in that job. But the only reason he's in that job is people that interview for the job don't know what it takes to be in the job. That's how you get jobs like that. You have to find somebody incompetent who's doing the hiring that allows the incompetent to hire the incompetent. It's a beautiful thing. So anyway, but my point, Peyton comes out and says that's one of the worst offenses we're ever going to play. And we can't read anything into what we did today against them. But that's the point. I mean, so I don't know what Jacksonville's going to do. I mean, Jacksonville didn't interview. They're not. Are they going to let Bill come in and run his program? I doubt it. I mean, Carolina didn't even interview Bill last year. They had a chance to edit a gift. So they didn't interview. I think they did Vrabel, but it gave him like 1 minute. It's a joke. This league. This is why, to me, the Deshaun Watson, all these. You're a fan of the league. It's bullshit because all these teams that pretend they're trying to win are trying to win their way. They're not purifying trying to win. Cleveland wants to win with Watson, and they'll lose in spite of him. Indianapolis wants to win with Richardson, and they would rather lose in spite of making a change, right? If you're pure and you really want to win, the Giants want to win with Daniel Jones. They don't give a shit. Come hell or high water, you're going to buy the tickets. You're going to come see him. I'm going to be proven right? Forget about, and then they pretend, well, we want to win. We want to win. Carolina, we want to win. Well, we hired Dave Canales. We hired Dan Morgan. Both those guys I wouldn't let run my fantasy. Morgan, I wouldn't let run my fantasy team, okay? It's just for that. I mean, literally, Morgan wouldn't be able to survive in Stratomatic baseball with me and Michael Cimino and Danny Reynolds. He'd have gotten thrown out of that league too. So forget that. The point is like they all pretend they want to win and they do nothing that really understands winning. And it's proven with Deshaun Watson. It's proven with the Indianapolis. It's proven everywhere.
Great stuff. Let's get to the Week 8 awards, and we're going to start with the DraftKings crowning moment. There can only be one, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, what else could there be, right? I mean, like, holy shit. I mean, like, that play. I mean, first of all, it should never – it's the most dangerous play of all in football, right? I mean, it's so hard to defend, and it's just if you don't handle the situation – look, hey, I've seen New England not handle it, so it's hard. I mean, remember the one in Miami where Gronk missed it and they got the touchdown late in the game? But they had Gronk back there. I think that was the biggest problem. I think they didn't have the right personnel on the field, too.
Yep. DraftKings crowning moment, of course, the Washington Hail Mary, exercising those Daniel Snyder demons. Let's get to your fraud of the week. And I believe they live in Cincy.
Oh, they're such frauds. I mean, this whole idea that when I was in San Francisco, we won a Super Bowl in '84. And the next year we come back, we have to defend the title. And we had pretty much the same team, and we've added the great Jerry Rice to the team. And we were not the same team. This is a different time. There was no off-season programs. There was none of that. But it was hard, right? It was really hard. And all we kept saying around the building, and I'm some 25-year-old slappy. I have no role, right? I'm just happy to be there, is all we keep saying around the building is, oh, all we got to do is get in the game. We're going to win this thing. Well, we got in and we lost. Like that whole idea that we can win 10. You can't beat the Raiders. You can't beat anybody. Or you barely beat Cleveland last week with Deshaun Watson. Like one game at a time. I just think there are inherent problems with their defensive front, the way they practice, Zach Taylor's softness. They're frauds.
Freddie Palermo, best game plan. And you mentioned it.
I mean,
the desert there.
I mean, they did a great job. They ran the football. I mean, I think James Conner is one of the most underrated players in the league. I think the guy's dynamic. I thought he was a good back. I never thought he was an elite back. Everything he does in Arizona is elite. I think the guy's really good. And credit Murray. He made plays when he had to. 3rd and 5. They needed a first down. Everybody in the building, including the disc jockey, knew he was going to run the football. And he ran it, and he got the first down. So I credit him on that.
Yeah, Bella's a big fan of the Cardinals game plan.
On the lamb. Keep her quiet.
No, she's good.
Bella's on the lamb.
Part of the team.
Well, she's got it. Bella should be. She's got a bad paw. She's limping around the house now, so she might be on the lamb. Miami's got to go on the lamb. I mean, at what point does McDaniel where people say, "Wait a minute, I know he just got a contract extension, but seriously, at what point you couldn't win with a backup quarterback? Then you get Tua back, and now you can't stop anybody in the fourth quarter. Like at some point, I just think to me it's so bad down there. But again, it's more player friendly. It's always good. Players love to be here. Everybody's happy. It was Vic Fangio. It was too hard on the players.
Finally, if you don't know, now you know. In Cleveland,
the Browns' offense wasn't the problem. Deshaun Watson was. Just like Indianapolis will put up record numbers if they put Flacco. Are we really trying to win? Are we trying to win? See, that was the hard thing to me at the Raiders, is as Al Davis got older, he wanted to win his way. He didn't even want, he was already in the Hall of Fame and he wanted to win his way. And I think to me, that's part of the biggest problem in the NFL. The fans don't see that. The fans think there's purity within the team's intentions, and there's not. Ego's involved in all this. And so the ego wants you to win your way. You think David Tepper wants to win with somebody else running his team? Of course not. His ego's too big for that. He wants to prove he's smart. Dan Snyder spent how many years trying to prove he was smarter than everybody? Never worked, but he tried to prove it, right? But that's the NFL. The NFL is a collection of egos, and we're going to win my way. Instead of saying, look, if I hire the right guy, I'll go in the Hall of Fame.
That's for you, Robert Kraft. That's me. That's not Michael.
No, that's exactly what I've said about Robert Kraft. He belongs in the Hall of Fame for hiring the right guy. I've said it millions of times.
Nailed it. Crowning Moments is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Okay, 30 seconds. The Giants at Pittsburgh. The Giants are catching 6.
I think Dexter Lawrence and the defensive line have to have a big game. I don't know if the Giants can win the game, but I think this is the biggest spread that they've had in Pittsburgh since Big Ben left. I think it's too many points. I'm taking the Giants in the 6. I got to get it. I got to get the 2-1 against Russo as he goes 0-3. I'll still have the box because I won one. Yep.
Hey, get Bella to the vet. Michael Lombardi, I'll see you Thursday. GM Shuffle. Elliot, great job. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Patrick.